Hi, welcome or welcome back to Knit the 80s. Today I want to talk about a big fat knitting mistake that I have made. So if you've been following this series, you may recall that a couple of videos ago I said this. Rather than separating all this background colour into separate bobbins, I decided to carry my yarn across the back like you would if you were doing stranded colour work. And it's working out fine. I know it's not really what you're supposed to do, but I've done it and it's all good. And then later in the next video, I also said this. I've got a couple of really large stitches at the edge of the red. I thought that it was related to these floats and that they were like pulling the yarn too much. I've changed the way that I did the floats and it's not changed it. So I've concluded it's not the floats. And I believe I also said this. I am not an expert by any means and I'm not here to teach you how to do anything. That last one is probably the truest thing I've said on this channel because as you can probably tell, that first decision that I made was indeed the wrong decision. It was a stupid thing to do. So my current work in progress is this t-shirt pattern from a 1988 magazine edition. As you can see, it is an intarsia pattern, and if you have ever done intarsia before, which embarrassingly I have, you know that there are some rules that should be followed. Now I'm sure that there were a few of you screaming at your computer screens, Rosie, what are you doing? You know that's wrong. And you would be right. This decision I made to ignore the rules, try to do it differently, evidently hasn't worked out. I have a large piece, hang on, I'm going to show you. I have a large piece of intarsia colorwork, which essentially is full of holes, and now I have to figure out how to fix it. So this is no one's fault but my own. I led myself into this mess and I'm going to try and get myself out of it. But yeah, lesson learned. The rules are indeed there for a reason. So here's what I was thinking though. I said in that clip, I knew the rule, right? And I decided to ignore it because how bad could it be? And here's what I realized. I had seen and followed intarsia tutorials before. I had read articles about it. I had learned what to do. But what I had not learned and what I didn't find easily available is why. So if you've ever done intarsia before, then you know the rule is that each separate block of colour must have its own bobbin or spool of yarn. Evidently, the reason is that if you don't do that, you're going to get holes in your knitting. But why? Okay, I've said before that this is not an educational channel, and it's not, but personally, it took me a while to figure out the reason why this rule exists. And in fact, it took me breaking the rule and finding out the hard way to learn why it exists. But since having done that, I finally realized, it's finally clicked in my brain how it works and why it works. So, okay, if you already know this, if this is all familiar territory to you, please feel free to skip ahead. But for me, it was super useful to visualize this process and figure out sort of the physics of why do I have to do it this way? And so, yeah, I thought I would share it with you on the off chance that it's useful for someone out there. If you already know, go ahead and skip to the next part. So here's my very rough approximation of how both stranded and intarsia colourwork function and how they're different. So in stranded colourwork, you always carry both the colours at the same time. And they travel in the same direction, with one colour to the front of the work, the other colour to the back. So when you want to change colours, the yarn just has to travel a few millimetres from the front to the back or vice versa. So any pull in either direction cannot separate those yarns because they've been travelling together, loosely kind of spiralling in the same direction. Now intarsia works very differently, because the yarns should not be held together and they don't travel in the same direction. So every time that you change colours, you would hook colour A around colour B to link them together and then carry on working in your new colour. So what that means is that pulling on either end of the fabric cannot separate those yarns. In fact, the join between them becomes tighter when pulled. So because intarsia is always worked flat, each colour will zigzag back and forth, knit row, purl row, and so on, through its own section of the work, creating a new join and then going back the other way each time that it meets the other colour. As you can see, when you join the two colours for a second time, even a third time, fourth time, and so on, that makes the work even stronger and more stable because the strands of yarn are pulling on each other equally but in opposite directions, each strand cancelling out the pull of the other one. Okay, so that's how it should work. And now here's what I did. So I wanted the main colour to be carried throughout. So here it is, blue's my main colour, travelling back and forth throughout the work, since my t-shirt was knitted flat. Then I also wanted colour B to be worked back and forth in its own section within colour A, using intarsia joins, and you can probably already tell that that is not going to work. So as you can see, these joins are not doing their job because the main colour does not travel back the other way after meeting colour B. Instead, it carries on in the same direction, meaning there's no stability in that join. So colour A cannot hold colour B in place if it is travelling the same way. Here I'm doing my best to hold or hook colour B around colour A every time that they meet, but colour A, the main colour, can't do its job and support the second colour because sometimes it's travelling in the same direction and sometimes it's travelling in the opposite direction, so it's really impossible to establish those joins correctly. So that opposing force, where the yarns are supposed to pull on each other in opposite directions, it just doesn't exist. Now here you can see that when I pull on the ends of the work, I am left with a tangly, saggy mess. So yeah, that's my basic understanding of how it works, or how it's supposed to work anyway. And in the meantime, I'm left with this, and I'm left with the decision of what do I do now, because this is nearly finished. I've actually nearly finished the front portion. There's this much of it. As you can see, here's the neckline. I started to cast off here, and one of the shoulder portions, this is the right shoulder, is complete. So I now just have the left shoulder to do. It's not going to take very long, and then the front portion is finished. Now, I know that every knitter, every crafter has a different boundary, right? A different limit for when something can be saved, for a problem that can be lived with, and a problem that cannot be lived with. So I'm left here to decide, can I live with this issue? Can I fix it to the best of my ability and wear and love this item knowing that it's just, going to contain significant evidence of my poor knitting decisions? Or do I bite the bullet and start again and ultimately end up with something that will look better? What would you do? I'm leaning towards, no, I don't really want to start again, obviously. What I think I will do is finish the shoulder. That's a couple of hours work tops, and then I'm going to block it. I'm going to have a go at manipulating my loose stitches and see if there's anything that can be done about them. I'm hoping the combination of those two things will make the issue less noticeable, if not invisible. And then decide after that, I guess. In hindsight, I should have frogged this, a couple of inches into the colour work when I noticed that there was an issue. Didn't do that. Actually, the reason that I didn't do that was because it was already the second attempt, and I don't know what it is, but I can't be starting things 3 times over. Maybe I should learn another lesson from that, because this has happened before. Something goes wrong the second time, I'm not going back, but yeah, maybe I should sometimes. So yeah, there it is, my almost complete, rather imperfect intarsia, well, half of my intarsia t-shirt. I still have to do the whole back, but it's just stuck in it, so what could go wrong, eh? Done. Here it is. There's ends absolutely everywhere, but I'm gonna deal with that later, and I'm gonna go block this now while the sun is shining. Only a day has passed since I spoke to you last. This bit was very fast because it was only this little bit of shoulder that was left to do. So yeah, here it is. I keep having to remind myself that this is only half the project. I still have to make all of the back, but this was the hard part. There it is. And I think it's gonna fit in everything. I think I did mention last time at what point I realised that doing intarsia wrong was in fact the reason why my intarsia didn't look good. Where was it? Here. So around here is the first place where one of the colours exits out the side. So then obviously from this point onwards, there's no need to have a float here because there is no background colour to carry across. You see what I mean? And weirdly enough, as soon as I stopped doing that, this piece of red suddenly started to look better than all the other pieces of colour. How funny. So from around that point onward, I decided to start doing it correctly all over, and yeah, I think you can tell the difference. Even from the front, I think you can see that around here, it just looks more even, more flat, more straight. And on the back, clearly you can tell the difference. Here it's just so much neater.
This is after I've had a go at manipulating the edge stitches. Along this edge and all the corresponding ones is where it was worse. Along this edge, for example, it's not really been an issue. So I think you can still see that there are some baggy stitches like here, but it's definitely better compared to here where I've not yet done anything. So maybe if I repeat this a couple more times, it might be good enough.
So October's nearly over already. In a second I'll show you what I've managed to get done this month. I will tell you if my attempt to fix my colour work has been successful. Here where I live in central Mexico, autumn is here at last. It's come a bit late this year, but that signals the end of the rainy season. At last, the sun is out, everything's green, it's beautiful. What that also means is that the cicadas are waking up. I'm pretty sure that you're going to hear them, and there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. So sorry, that's nature, I guess. So let me show you the front half of my intarsia t-shirt and how it has come out. In the end, I spent about another hour working on it, pulling and pushing these stitches and trying to get them into place. It didn't explain what I was doing when I was pulling those stitches, although I think it's a technique that most knitters have probably done at some point because you can use it on lots of occasions to even out your stitches. Basically, the idea is to pull the excess yarn out of the stitch that's too big and try and redistribute that excess yarn throughout the following stitches. Now in this case, I only had 8 stitches across in which to redistribute that yarn. It was just about enough, but obviously more would have been better. But we'll work with what we've got. Let me show you. So from here, from the distance that you're at, I don't think you can see the holes. Can you? I'm overall pretty happy about how it's worked out. Obviously, I can see the issues, but I made this. They're my issues, and I'm always going to know that they are there. But I think that as a bystander or an observer, it's not too obvious. Here, I'll hold it closer. I do think it got much, much better. It's not perfect, obviously. And without a doubt, it would definitely have been better to do it right the first time. I'm making these mistakes, so you don't have to. Don't make this mistake. I think that at a casual glance, it's good enough. It's good enough that I'm happy with it. I think if you hold it up to the light, you can kind of see the holes, but who's going to be holding it up to the light? No one. So yeah, I've decided that I can live with this. I'm going to carry on. I'm going to keep working on it. I will not be redoing this. Thank God. Okay, so this half of the project used up near on exactly 2 balls of the main yarn. So that's 100 grams. And it used hardly any of the other 2 colours. I needn't have worried about not having enough. So in hindsight, maybe I could have used the purple, but anyway, never mind. So I've got loads left of these. I didn't even break into the second skein of the blue that I have. But I want to show you something. Okay, so I've got all this red left. Look, I've just weighed this. There are 35 grams left, so I only used 15. Hardly anything. This was not a 1980s yarn, although I did get it from Lulu. Not a retro yarn. It's just some cotton yarn that was, I think, intended for crochet something. The other yarn, though, has been surprisingly exciting. So this yarn got a whole 50, it was 50? Yeah, got a whole 50 grams left, and this much that I didn't use. So similarly, I imagine I used about 15 grams. Now, this yarn is not from Lulu's stash. This yarn I got from my grandmother who lives in Germany. And similarly, she had some yarns that she didn't want, and so I took a few with me the last time that I visited her. And I didn't know where or when this yarn came from, but I think it's accidentally a 1980s yarn. Do you know why I know that? So this is a German yarn. The brand is Reines Naturgarn, I think, Miami, 50 grams, linen viscose. Here's how I know. Here's how I think I know that it's a 1980s yarn. Do you see that? Where it's from on the label? It's from West Germany. When did West Germany stop being a country? End of the 80s. The Berlin Wall fell in 1989, which leads me to believe this is very probably a 1980s yarn. Accidentally, and I didn't even plan that. How cool. This yarn, it's kind of odd in a lot of ways because it's linen and it has this sort of thick and thin spin texture to it. A little bit shiny, but not very shiny. I'm not sure what else I will use it for, although I would love to use this up somehow. It's kind of cool, and in the end, yeah, I really enjoyed working with it actually. It was quite unique and quite pleasant to work with. So meanwhile, I did start on the back of the t-shirt. This is what I've got so far. I am this far in. It's not very much. I finished the ribbing. That was the most time consuming bit, really. All this ribbing on 2.5mm needles. I've since switched to 3.5mm needles, although I've done a little trick, and on the pearl side I'm using 3.25s, which is to prevent me from rowing out from my pearl rows appearing slightly larger than my knit rows, because that does happen to me, and this has fixed the issue. I don't think you can tell which ones are the pearls and which ones are the knits. So far it's going fine. It's just stockinette, so nothing too exciting here. What I have done, I'm a British knitter, typically, but what I have done for this project is, I'm really proud of myself for doing this. I took one evening and instead of working on this directly, I knitted myself a swatch in some scrap yarn and some spare needles. And in that swatch, I practiced knitting continental style, yarn in the left hand, because with this big stretch of stockinette, I just wanted to find a way to give my hands a bit of a break, basically. So what I have been doing is purling British style on the pearl rows and knitting continental style. I'm quite slow at it still, but it's getting a little bit better every row. It's not so difficult. I don't know, I put off learning how to do this for a really long time because I thought it would be really difficult. And it was to begin with, but I think I've got used to it. It's going well. So yeah, I think it's just really useful to know how to do both, especially to be able to give one hand or the other a bit of a rest when it needs it, right? That's the reason I've done this, because all this just back and forth. If I were doing it all British, moving the yarn with my right hand, it gets tiring on your hands. So yeah, that's the reason I've done this, and I don't think you can tell. I don't think you can tell where I started doing it is around here, but I don't think it's visible, so the tension's reasonably consistent, which is great. So a new skill, yay. So what's next? Normally, this is the point in any project where I would be in danger of putting it down and not finishing it. Currently, I don't feel like that. I'm quite motivated to get this done. I really want to get it done next month. Fingers crossed. I think I can do it. I've mentioned this before, but it's so helpful actually, the fact that I'm filming this and knitting on the internet, in terms of giving me motivation to finish the project, because yeah, I don't typically choose plain stockinette projects for that reason that I am liable not to finish them, which is not the fault of the project, that's a me thing, but that is something that I know about myself. So I was kind of worried about the back half of this sweater t-shirt, to the extent that the pattern instructs you actually to do this first and this second, and I thought, no, there's no way, I need to do this first, so I've got a reason to then finish this. That's way better for me personally. So yeah, we'll see. Here's hoping that next month I'll be able to show you this finished, and then I can join them together, do the collar and the cuffs and everything. That would be cool, because I'm excited to wear this. I want it to be done already. So that's my plan. I'm not planning on starting the next project until I've finished this one, for the same reason, because if the next one turns out to be, you know, like a little more interesting, this one's gonna fall by the wayside, and I don't want that. I want it to be finished. So that's my plan for the coming week or weeks, or who knows how long it takes me to finish this thing. So stay tuned. Hopefully in the next video, I'll have a finished object to show you. So yeah, the lesson of this video is, of course, it is definitely worth starting over, even if you have to start over 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Overall, that's better than having something at the end that either you're flat out not happy with, or you have to then spend your time fixing. So do better than I have done. And that for the most part, knitting rules have been around for a very long time, and they've been around for a reason. So pay attention to them. If you don't understand them, ask somebody. That's what I should have done. I should have asked somebody, hey, if I do this, what will happen? Hindsight, eh? Never mind. I fixed it. It's okay now. But yeah, would have saved me a lot of grief. Finding out why and how, and then, you know, doing it right to begin with. But there you go. That was life. We learn. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've enjoyed chatting to you this month. I hope you've enjoyed watching as well. Happy knitting as always. Until next time, may your colour work never happen.